Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Hands on SAP Dev with me, DJ Q Macro. Yeah, well, I think we know how this goes now. So I've got my coffee, I've got my, well, not a chocolate biscuit, I've got a piece of chocolate here. Good morning, everybody, and welcome. So welcome to Santiago, and Helmut, and AP, and is that, oh, that's me, isn't it? And Leo van Hendelhoff. Good morning to Frankfurt. Good morning to Brunswick. Oh, see. Is that the third possible spelling we've had from the place that you're at, Helmut? We've had Braunschweig, Brunswick, and Brunswick as well. That's quite cool. So yeah, I'm looking down here again. I did have my second laptop, my Chrome, my Google Pixelbook. I put it on a box next to the camera so I could sort of look up and read it, but it was really unstable. So I just put it down here again. Anyway, good morning. We're going to do some more OAuth. I think this is, you know what, I've made my coffee. I had some coffee earlier this morning, and I always like to make a coffee in my Hands on SAP Dev mug, OAuth at 8 AM. That phrase was picked up by Alex Ellis a while ago when he joined the channel once. And as I was pressing the AeroPress down, I could feel something wasn't quite right. I think I've got some coffee grit in here. Oh well, anyway, it happens to the best of us, doesn't it? So yeah, we're going to continue where we left off last week with OAuth 2.0. I'll just dig into that in a minute. I've just put in the chat the SAP developer news for this week, the link there. Lots of news in there. And yeah, we'll get started. So Javier, good morning. I'm glad you made it for the live stream as well, Javier. Welcome back. Welcome back. So in fact, why don't we switch to the main scene there. I can tell my brain's not working because I was looking at my Stream Deck. See, I've got my. Oh, I'm not going to move the camera because I can't even see what's going on. I'm looking at my stream. I'm looking at the word main. I'm thinking, is that the one I pressed to go to main scene? Oh dear, I can tell it's going to be one of those streams. Anyway, because I was awake in the middle of the night thinking about things, random things. Now I've been listening to the audiobook version of a brilliant book from John Scalzi called Old Man's War, and they were talking about parallel universes, the multiverse, and I got I had this really weird dream after that. It was crazy. Anyway, where did we leave off last week? We left off last week. We had successfully managed to make a call. In fact, where were we? To make a call to an endpoint. Let's have a look in the entitlement service URL. In fact, let's go to the API entitlement service. Here's the entitlement service that we looked at, right? And we looked at this entitlement service, and we looked at the API reference, and we chose this particular endpoint. Entitlements v1 global account allowed data centers, and we saw, for example, that it needed a certain scope, this global account region read, in order to access that, and we successfully requested a token with the data that we had inside our service key, inside our binding. Oh, look at that nice pattern there, it's quite nice, inside the binding, right? Okay, so we got that. And we made a call, and I think, yeah, we still got, yes, that's right. No, that was last Friday, and I've been messing around since then. I've got a couple of symbolic links because we're going to be messing around with some bits and pieces in here today. So what we've got in this directory, in this little scratch directory, we've got the binding for the service key for the central plan based instance of the cloud management service, the CIS service, which we used last week. That's the same thing. I haven't changed this file at all. In fact, where is that? CIS Central, Jan 12th. Oh, yeah, what was that? When's Jan? Oh, yeah, that was yesterday. I sort of recreated it. I don't know why I recreated it. I didn't recreate it for any particular reason. But what I also did yesterday was I ran the get token again. So in fact, let's look at get token. This is what we did last week. we use the data in the CIS central service key JSON in the binding, right? And out of that binding, we got the UAA URL, the base URL for the authorization server that we then had to ask for a token. We also got out of that file, out of the binding file, the client ID and the client secret, okay? So in fact, why don't we have a look at that? Let's have a look. Let's edit that. So we went into here, into this UAA section. Oh, of course, I deleted the service key file and service key straight after the YouTube video live stream, so that, you know, security, safety, etc. Right? So we did that. We used the client ID, we used the client secret, we used the URL, which is the endpoint that I then stuck on at the end of it. Let's go out of here. At the end of it, we used, here we go, /OAuth/token, right? To say, that's a well-known endpoint, to say, please give me an access token, okay? And we used, because this is what we had to use, because it was documented as such as being protected by the resource owner password credentials grant type, otherwise known as password grant type or password flow. And we authenticated that call using basic authentication, with the user being the client ID and the password being the client secret. But we also had to supply the resource owner my credentials, resource owner password credentials. That's why it's called resource owner password credentials. Now, what we're going to do today is try and look at a small thing sort of related to this, because we can do it this way, which is looking at refresh tokens. You know, we've talked about access tokens, but let's look at refresh tokens. Then we're going to look at client credentials, which is another flow, an OAuth flow, and it's a little bit like this resource owner password credentials flow. And hopefully we'll get through that quite quickly if I stop talking, because I want to also go through something that's less common from a consuming API endpoint perspective, you know, in the SAP Business Technology Platform world, for example, but is super common everywhere else, right? Especially when humans are involved, and especially when there's this concept of three-legged authorization, which we'll talk about shortly, okay? So it's really important to understand, and really important to sort of just see it with your own eyes. So that's what we're going to try and do. So, okay, let me know in the chat. Let me know what your experience with OAuth 2.0 is, and also have a think about. I've been thinking about what I'm going to do next week. If we manage to do all the OAuth stuff I want to do today in this hour, then I'm thinking, oh God, what am I going to do next week? But I've got an idea, which I'll talk to you about in a bit. So, yeah, say hello in the chat if you've not said hello already, and yeah, let's get going. So, what I did yesterday was go and get a token, get a new token, and just try it out, make sure it was still working, and it was. Okay, so I successfully managed to make a call to this endpoint here, global allowed data centers, to get some data. Right, and I used the access token. In fact, we don't need to do that. We don't need to use IJQ, do we? We just look at it. Have I got, there's my little JS thing, token. Yeah, we used the access token, which was that, to credentialize, to authorize that call. Okay. Now, what we also saw, though, when we were looking at the token data that was returned from a please give me an access token request, is we got other things as well in the response. We got the token type. It's a bearer token. That's why we say authorization : bearer, and then the token itself. I mentioned last week ID token. I don't even know what that is. I've not even looked it up. I don't know what it is. I've never used it. Who knows? Scope, we understand what scope is. And we also briefly looked at expires in. So expires in is basically a number of seconds after which this token will expire, this access token. Now, if we do, in fact, yeah, well, let's look at it in IJQ. Why not? Token if we look at the expires in, it's 43199. Let's just add 1 to that. That's 43200, right? Cap multi-tenant with blue-green deploy. Oh my goodness me, Javier, that's in fact, I was thinking about some cap stuff. So let's suspend that thought, Javier. That's a nice idea. And maybe not multi-tenant straight away, but anyway, let's talk about cap at the end. Nice thought. Also, you've got to remember that I know nothing, right? So if we choose a new subject, I think, what do I know about this? Nothing. Let me go and read some stuff. Oh my goodness me, right? So I know nothing. I have no idea what I'm doing. So this expires in. If we say, let's not add a 1, 43199 divided by number of seconds in a minute times number of minutes in an hour, that's 12 hours. That's 12 hours. So is there there a round function in JQ. Thank you, JQ. 12 hours. So this access token, when it was generated, which was yesterday, where is it? Jan 12th at 11:50. I did it just before lunch, deliberately so that theoretically now, today, this morning, my time, it won't be valid anymore because more than 12 hours have passed since 11:50 yesterday morning. Let's put that to the test. Okay, so if we now get token, no, we don't want to get token. We want to make the call, don't we? Oh, by the way, I like editing the curl command in the terminal, but also because I'm using the VI mode in my, in my shell using the readline settings, I can say, for what we did. We started with curl, for example, curl blah blah blah, and then I actually went into an editor, right? But that editing on Friday last week and before, all the text was sort of white. There was no color coding, no syntax highlighting, because basically Vim, or NeoVim in my case now, didn't know what to do with it. It knew it was sort of, in the bash context, but it didn't really know what it was. So what I've added is, this is so random, if I go to my dot files, config nvim init.lua, there, I added this. So I've said, and I'm still transitioning from Vim script to Lua to do my configuration. So I'm making a call, I'm making a Vim call via Lua through this pcall thing. But anyway, I've said basically when I enter a buffer in Vim and the file name starts bash something, set the file type to bash. Because I noticed that down here, this random sort of temporary file that gets created by readline, so you can edit the thing, it creates a temporary file with probably make temp, right? And it calls it bash something. So anyway, that's my little hack. So now, when I put a little, new line continuation thing, it's nicely color coded. Look at that. How nice is that now? So much nicer. So curl header, we'll add the header before authorization. That's better, isn't it? We can see what's going on. Bearer, and let's just have a look here. What was the thing? In the token we've got, there we go. Yeah, perfect. Bearer. And then we want JQ raw access token from the token file. This is what we did last week, right? Token JSON, a bit of a refresher. And then we actually add the URL. URL is, and that is in here, isn't it? Where is it? There, right? We want the raw version of the .credentials. In fact, why don't I start by having the file in before I forget it, like last time. CIS central sk.json / and what's it called? Entitlements. Thank you very much. That. Right, but I'm going to go back now and add, what is it called? Credentials. Let's add a thing there. Credentials dot endpoint dot, what's it called? Entitlements service URL. Okay. Oh, Nico, good morning. Welcome, Nico. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I do think there's a bit of grit in this coffee, but anyway. So this is what we did last week. We're going to make the call, and I'm hoping that this call will not be successful because the expires in 43199, 12 hours was more than 12 hours ago. So this is the call we made. Are we ready? Are we ready to make the call? Let's get rid of that actually, there, and make the call. Oh, okay, we made the call. Nothing came out, so there's no payload in the response, but what I actually forgot to do was add verbose to see what's going on. Right, now, the fact that, let's do that, there we go, we get no response, but so what's going on? Let's make sure we've got the right thing. Yeah, there we go. So I noticed that the response was successful, i.e. we got a little green semicolon. I've got a little thing in my shell that if the return code from the command that you just enter is an error return code, as in non-zero, it will put a red semicolon. It will make the semicolon red. My prompt is a semicolon. It'll make it red if the previous command ended in error. But it wasn't red, it was green. Hey, Antonio, welcome, Antonio. Welcome, Antonio. We're just looking at why or what's happening with my call, okay? So now we've got a verbose. Everything seems fine. Get /entitle. Let's just double check. Entitlements v1 global account allowed data centers. Okay, so that's sort of camel cased. Global account allowed data centers. That's correct. Yeah, I copy pasted it anyway, right? That's correct. In this entitlements -service cfapps host, the host is correct as well. There's the authorization token, the bearer token, right? And we get a 404, which is a bit unexpected, actually. I mean, I would expect that we don't get the data. But what were you expecting? Put in the chat what you were expecting to see if the token was invalid. I think I'd expect a 401, don't you? Let's have a look. HTTP 401. Yeah, I'd expect a 401, unauthorized, right? Let's have a look. Oh, here we go. API reference. I think down here, there we go. Responses. Code 200, okay. 400, bad request. 401, not authorized. There we go. 403, forbidden. Okay, let's not get into the debate between what the difference is between 401 and 403. There is a difference. I think forbidden is you've provided the correct, or you've provided, anyway, let's not even get to that. I say, let's not get into that, and I get into that. 404 not found. Now, we get 404 not found. Right, so either I've got the URL wrong, but I don't think I have. Or, and I've seen this before, not within the SAP context, but somewhere else, where if you try to access a resource and you don't have the right authorization, the server will respond with a 404, which in theory, I think the theory is that it doesn't want to give away the existence of that resource if you don't have the right authorization for it. So I can see why a 404, if it was deliberate, might be what was intended, but this documentation here, so that sounds like I need to have a conversation internally to find out why it's 404 and not 401. But what generally has happened is that we aren't given the response that we're looking for. We aren't given the list of data centers. So I will, Nico, will you remind me later on to reach out to the folks here and ask why we're getting a 404, not a 401. I would expect a 401 as well, to be honest. Okay, yeah, 401 is when you cannot be authenticated. Javier, I think you're all right. Antonio, Santiago, Javier, you're all correct. 401 is what we should expect here. What we should also expect is to not get the results, and we haven't got the results, which is sort of okay. So it's, half okay. What we can do though is we can either sort of confirm and not, and keep that call thing. In fact, why don't we do this? Echo that. Oops. Into a. So we'll keep exactly the same user bin and bash bang. There we go. We'll keep exactly the same call, so we know we're not sort of changing any of the URL or anything like that. That's right. Thank you, Javier. Yes, I didn't want to get into that, but yes, exactly that. That's so Javier is saying when 401 is when you don't have the authorization, you don't have the actual credentials, but 403 is, well, yeah, we've authenticated you, but we're still not allowing you access, right? Excellent. But is it so? Santiago saying, but is it correct to use a 404? Like I say, I've seen a 404 being used in what I'm hoping is this circumstance, which is I don't have authorization. I don't personally, I don't think that's the right approach. It should be a 401. Let's use the HTTP protocol as it was intended, right? Yeah, it's pretty strange, isn't it? Anyway, okay, so let me find out, if I can find out before next week, then we can have the answer next week. So that's the call we just made. So let's save that, change mod plus x call, so we can run the call. So we can run that now and see, okay, 404. So let's use that to see if we can actually at least refresh the token, right? So OAuth 2 token, no, refresh token. What is refresh token? Token grant, refresh token grant. Which one should we have? What is refresh token? Refreshing access tokens. There we go. That looks, yeah. This reminds me of what we need to do. So what we've got is in our token file, we've got an access token, a scope, a token type. We've also got a refresh token, and theoretically now our token's expired, right? So let's refresh it. So instead of using get token, let's copy get token to refresh token. So this is our get token. And what we're going to need is not only the details from our binding, i.e. the UAA URL, the client ID and the client secret, but we're also going to need the token file, aren't we? Token file equals token.json. Yes, I know it's unused. I've only just put it in. And we also need the refresh token equals refresh token. There we go. From the token file. Okay. And now, in fact, why don't I do this? Bring that across to there. There we go. That's fine. We can say here the grant type is not the name of, well, I suppose, yeah, the grant type is password, or grant type is client credentials, grant type is code, or whatever, all these different grant types. But actually, the grant type is almost like the refresh token is like a flow, it's like a grant type. So if we say refresh token, token here, but we also have to supply the refresh token itself, right? So if we say data refresh token equals refresh token, that's what we have to do. So I think it's still the same endpoint. Yes, post OAuth /token to the authorization server. So we're now saying, we want a new token, please. And let's try that. Okay, shall we try that? Let's try that. And we'll run the refresh token. And we can see here, we've got the refresh token, we've got the client ID, we've got the client secret. Now this is sort of independent really of, client ID, client secret, refresh token. I'm wondering, well, okay, let's do one thing at a time. I'm wondering whether we actually need to specify these two things. Interesting. Shall we not specify these and see what happens? So we've just got the client. Oh no, hold on. Let's do one thing at a time. It's a different different approach. No, let's leave that as it is, right? There we go. So refresh token, and let's put it in new token.json. Okay. Okay, so let's have a look at, I've got new token. Let's just pass that through JQ to clean it up. There we go. And we've got a new access token. So we get the same sort of file. So now, if we say move token old token, and then say link, symbolic link, new token to token.json. So now we've got an old token, a new token, and the token file points to new token at the moment. So we should be able to run call. Right, let's remind ourselves what's in call. It's getting the token from the file called token.json, which is currently pointing to the new token file. Can you tell I'm making this up? But there we go. Let's try that, shall we? Call. Is this going to work? What's going to happen? What's going to happen? It worked. It worked. Interesting. It worked. Okay. I'm super interested in this thing here. I think this is a bit too generic, but let's try. Shall we try that? Seriously, let's try that. Because in theory, once you've done the major authentication to get an access token and a refresh token and everything, it's almost like if you've got a refresh token, then you sort of prove that you've already gone through the dance to get the access token and the refresh token in the first. Let's have a look at this refresh token. So what this is saying is we send the grant type. We don't authenticate with basic authentication. Let's get rid of that one. And let's get rid of that one and that one. In fact, let's just remove them, right? But we also say, in fact, I'll use the same thing. Client ID. See, I don't even know whether it's supposed to be client underscore ID, client ID. We'll just try it. Client ID, client secret. I've no idea. You know, this is not in the documentation for the authorization server. You know, on the BTP in the BTP context. So let's try it. Client secret there. So we're passing refresh token, grant type refresh token. Theoretically, we should actually URL encode the refresh token, shouldn't we? But anyway, it worked anyway. Client ID, client secret, refresh token. Oh, hold on. Refresh token, we don't need to read that anymore, or that. Okay, so if we run refresh token now and put it into refreshed new, what's it called? New token, newer token JSON. Let's put it in there. Let's see what happens. Newer token. We seem to have got one. Don't we? Let's format that nicely as well. Oops. Newer token. Sorry, wait, what's going on? JQ there. There we go. So now, why don't we do this? Let's get rid of, put that there. So let's say newer token. Token. We'll have to force it because it already exists, right? Force. So we're now saying symbolic link token.json to newer token.json, even though token.json exists, right? So now we can say token.json now points to newer token.json. So, Javier is saying, question, DJ, any good resources to learn bash scripting and be proficient as you are with a terminal? That's a good question. That's a good question. I've got some blog posts on my blog with some resources. Remind me at the end, and I'll point you to some. But basically, one of the best things you can do. I'll tell you what. Chrome, new Q macro, what's it called? Shell check. There we go, improving my shell scripting. That might help. Let me put that in the chat for you, there. Yes, so we got shell check here, and shufmt, and yeah, definitely worth having a look at shell check. And then you can, and also the Google Shell Style Guide. So have a look at that, and also ping me online. Ping me online. You know, I'd be more than happy to help out with stuff. So yeah, have a look at that. That might help. So now we got a token. So let's try the call again. Should we try the call again? That worked too. Perfect. So actually, the original call that we made to refresh the token, we didn't need to specify the resource owner password credentials again because we already, you know, we'd already been through that dance. Does that make sense? It was very good. It was very good. You have captured the flag challenges. What was very good, Santiago? I missed that. Let me know. Let me know. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? We're already 8:30. Oh my goodness me! Right. But that was quite interesting, wasn't it? So this is how a token expires. You don't get, you know, you get a 4 asterisk response. I think we should get a 401 response. We're getting a 404 response. We don't get the resource because the token has expired. We're not authorized anymore. We refresh the token. Please give me another token using the refresh token. And then we're back in the races again. That's cool, right? Okay, so that was resource owner password credentials. We did a refresh token. I want to briefly cover, in 10 minutes maximum, briefly cover client credentials, because it's very similar, right? Client credentials is where the client, the program, the script, or whatever, your program is the main actor in the dance. Okay, so the client is, you know, has its own identity, and it is the thing that's being authorized. There's no human involved, right? In the resource owner password credentials, a human was involved because I had to give my credentials as the resource owner to get the initial dance through to get an access token. However, a client credentials flow, in fact, what was it called? Virtual, there we go. In here, when we looked at this last week, client credentials, this time the flow is outside the context of any human involvement. In other words, this is where the client is acting on its own behalf. So if you're going to be writing scripts or whatever, programs generally, that are making calls to APIs, for example, and obviously having to authenticate and authorize themselves, then the program, the script, is the client, okay? So we did, a long time ago, we did some stuff relating to messaging. So if we go to cloud messaging hands-on SAP dev, that's a cloud messaging hands-on SAP dev. That is a GitHub repo. Where are we? There. GitHub repo. We've not, two years ago. So we started this probably a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. Yeah. And we were messing about with enterprise messaging, event mesh, right? And it's still fine. Hey, Samuel contributed there as well. Exactly, Helmut. Thank you, Helmut. You don't need client ID and secret if you have a refresh token because it has the same security level as an access token. Exactly, Helmut. Thank you for qualifying that. That's brilliant. And also, we found out that the hard way by saying, "Oh, we'll do this." Oh, yeah, it worked, but do we really need to do this? Do we really need to specify the resource owner password credentials again? No. Okay. So we proved that to ourselves manually as well. So now in here we have a load of stuff. Let me just make sure I'm still logged into my Cloud Foundry endpoint, so I can say CF services, and you can see here we don't need that anymore, do we? Get rid of that. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. Perfect. So we can see here we've got our CIS central instance of the CIS service with a central plan, and we noticed this in passing the last time. We got an enterprise messaging service instance with the dev plan called enterprise messaging dev, and this is what we need. This is what I'm using for some messaging, for some event mesh stuff. So that's fine. If I was to say management, remember that, is anybody on this stream now today that remembers when we were doing the cloud messaging stuff on hands-on SAP Dev? If we say messaging management list queues, it should go out and request a new service binding, pull the service binding down and then request a token and then make the call and it's successful. How does it do that? Well, if we have a look here at the management, all we do is we say, well, if the command's not help or anything like that, right? If we recognize the command, then first of all, go and get the service key. Go and get the management information from the service key and use that management information to request an access token. Okay, so this should all be familiar now. So if we say, for example, let's have a look at, let's put it on the other side. Let's have a look at, there it is. That is what's just been retrieved. Let's just zoom that in. Zoom in. That's what's been retrieved. And look at this. This looks familiar, right? This looks familiar. It's not quite in the same format, but we've got a client ID, because this is basically, if you want to do some management stuff relating to the enterprise messaging endpoints, you need OAuth 2, right? And there's your client ID, there's your client secret. Zoom in again. You need the client credentials grant type. Where you have to send your requests is there, and that's in full for us, okay? And then the URI, the endpoint for making actual calls, is that thing there, right? So we've got everything you need, right? So that's that. Let's go back here. Let's put that on that side again. Let's put that, yeah, that'll do, right? Okay, so go and get, in fact, let's bring that back again. Where is it? Let's use FX. We've got the credentials, we've got the management credentials, OAuth 2. There we go. So we've got the client ID, client secret, grant type, token endpoint. So we get the management, we get the URI from the management, which is this one right there. Then we get the also we get the OAuth stuff, right? So there's the URI for the endpoint calls, and there's the OAuth stuff. And then we go and get a token, right? Get token. So let's have a look at this. We don't need that anymore. No, let's get rid of that. There we go. Then we go and get the token. Go to definition. It's here, right? All we do is we grab the client ID, grab the client secret, get the grant type, which we're assuming is and hoping is client credentials, right? Get the token endpoint, right? And make a call. So we're now back to where we were with the resource owner password credentials, making a call. And the call is very similar, right? The call is very similar. It's a call to the token endpoint, right? There, which is the something 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 /OAuth /token. Please give me a token. But instead of having to supply the user ID and the password that belongs to the resource owner, and in the resource owner password credentials grant type, you have to have this super secure trust between the resource owner and the actual script or program that's using that flow. Instead of that, all we have to supply, or we have to use, are the client's ID and the client's secret, and that is passed in a basic authentication, basic authorization header, right? Authentication header. But because we're going through TLS encrypted HTTP, that's fine, it's secure enough. And then we get a token. So in fact, can we say here, I think we don't need to run this ourselves, do we? We can see that we got a token there. There's the access token. In fact, we can see here, let's just put that on that side again. There, we can see here that the token, 8:35, that's my time, it's 8:39 now. So the token was requested. So if we now say, do it again, management list queues, hopefully we get the queues. If we list again that, we can see that it's not grabbed the service binding anymore, because So does anybody remember doing this? We've got a caching mechanism for the service binding. This is a little bit sort of belt and braces anyway, but it's requested a token again, okay? Because, well, let's have a look what's in the token, right? Let's have a look what's in the token. fx token.json. We've got the access token. It expires in 12 hours, so I don't really need to request a new access token every time. This is me being lazy. So what I should really be doing is saying, well, remember when the access token was granted, and then look when that was, look how old that is, compare it with how long it expires, and then only go and get another token if it's expired, right? So that's better practice. I think we even talked about this last time and I still haven't done it. Notice what's missing here. If we have a look at this, JQ keys token.json, can anybody see what's missing compared to JQ keys token? Oh, hold on, where are we? No, JQ keys, let's go there. OAuth, JQ keys in this token file. We don't get the ID token, and I still don't know what it is, but we don't get the refresh token either. In client credentials, there's not really much point in having a refresh token. All you need to do is when it expires, just ask for another one because you're asking on your own behalf, as it were. The program is asking on its own behalf. Does that make sense? Oh, hello. Santiago says, I wrote the over-the-wire bandit page as bash scripting challenges and for... Oh, I see. Did you try and put in a URL there? Because it didn't come through, Santiago. Over-the-wire bandit page as bash scripting challenges, and for learning they are pretty good, but I can't pass links in the chat. Oh, I see. Yes. Okay. So yeah, I guess we could search for that on your favorite search engine and have a look. Fantastic, Santiago. Well done. Okay, cool. So does that make sense? I do want to cover the. Have we done enough for client credentials? I think client credentials is very similar and it's the same. How can we demonstrate this? Do we want to demonstrate this? I think what we should do is go to the authorization code. If we have a look at here, the authorization code, this normally involved a request initiated by the client to a human resource owner asking them to grant access. So this is this sort of so-called three-legged thing. You've got the authorization and resource server, one leg type thing. You've got the resource owner, me, and then you've got a client, as in a program, that wants to access some resource on my behalf, right? So that's me, that's the script, and that's the resource. Now, I'm just thinking, let me know in the chat, let's decide. We could defer this to next week because we've only got 15 minutes left, and we could use that 15 minutes to look at a bit more about client credentials and then take our time with the authorization code because it's quite complex. It's quite complex. Let me know in the chat what you think, and while you let me know in the chat, I'm going to have a drink of coffee. I know not everyone likes to talk in the chat, which is fine, but those people who don't mind talking in the chat, please let me know what we should do. Shall we try and just squeeze in the authorization code grant type? What I'm using, but what I thought I'd use, Strava API allows developers to make calls to grab. Oh, by the way, if you don't know what Strava is, Strava dashboard, it's the sort of cycling, running, walking, hiking thing, right? So you can see, get data. And in fact, Strava API, there's a developers.strava.com, of course, and there's a getting started guide. This is API documentation. We want all these different APIs here. And the Strava API endpoints are protected with OAuth 2.0 and specifically with the authorization code grant type. Let me know in the chat if we want to go through this slowly, because actually, where is it? There's a diagram somewhere here. There we go. This, make it a bit smaller. That diagram is what we need to understand and go through to understand the authorization code grant type. I've got a little script that I used a while ago. We can do authorization code next week. Better for next session. Okay, brilliant. We've got two folks on the chat. Fantastic. Thank you, Nico. Thank you, AP. Thank you, Santiago. Yeah, let's do that next week. Perfect. I'm quite excited about next week because I'm using all sorts of interesting things that may be interesting to Javier. I'm even using NCAT to be a little HTTP server. Anyway, let's do that another time. So why don't we try and make this call? Let's see if we can do some debugging. So what we've got, we don't need that anymore. Let's get rid of that. Okay, what we've got is this management script, and then we run the command. But what we do as well is we load in some settings. Okay, so we've got the enterprise, just basically values for variables, right? And then we've got some local utils. Local utils, which goes and gets tokens, gets values from JSON things, grabs the service key. This is a cache thing, 5 minutes. That's why that service key file was still the same as it was 5 minutes ago or 4 minutes ago. But then we've got a little library of functions, one per API endpoint for the management APIs. Now, sites help.sap.com management enterprise messaging API REST API. Oh, there we go. REST APIs for messaging. Look at that straight there. Publish messages to queue and top. Oh no, we want syntax event mesh default plan messaging protocols. Where is it? REST APIs for messaging. Consume message from queues. We want the management. Hold on, what did I search for? Let's make sure management is in the results. REST APIs. Oh, REST APIs for events. That's SAP enterprise messaging. Is that one there? Oh, we're at the similar place. Hold on a minute. Where is it? Syntax for naming queues, syntax for descriptor. Oh, initial setup. Default plan. No. Where is it? Development. REST APIs for REST. Ah, there we go. Yeah, there it is. There it is. So in development, we have REST APIs to manage queues and queue subscriptions. So what we did here is say management list queues. I've got a queue called Q1, I think it's called, right? That'll do. It's just a simple thing. Q1, right? There's nothing in the queue. Fine. So let's find what that actual thing is here. So this is the documentation that I was looking at. Let me share that in the thing there to work out how to get ready for and make a call to the REST API endpoints to manage queues, right? So blah 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 blah. This is exactly what the scripts are doing. And by the way, did I share the? Yeah, I think I did, didn't I? Yes, I shared it. So we don't need that anymore. Don't need that anymore. Don't need that anymore. There we go. Just have that one. Now, SAP Event Mesh Default Plan API specifications. Is that the one? This is not the one I was thinking of. Oh, here we go. There. It is that one. Right. Green proceed. Management. Okay, here we go. API reference. Manage queues. Get queues. Get queues. Queue. Put queues. Delete queue. There we go. Get queues. So this is like list queues. So the overview. So it's just /queues. /queues. How does that work? Let's have a look. Oh, we don't need that anymore either. Let's have a look. Management.sh. Edit that. List queues. Oh, there we go. Yes, there we go. There we go. Look, /queues is the API endpoint, right? And we just get a list of queues. There we go. Blah, 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 blah. Fine. So the list queues, the URI is the base URI. And the URI is this sort of thing here, right? Subdomain, some subdomain, CF apps, blah, 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 right? And that URI, remember, let's have a new thing here. Remember that that URI is that thing there. So Enterprise Messaging Hub, backend, CF apps, US 10, blah, 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 right? Okay, there's the URI. Let's get rid of that. Don't need that. Get rid of there. And then the base path, what's the base path? Hub REST API v1 management messaging. Hub REST API v1 management messaging. That's the thing, right? So we've got, in fact, why don't we do this? Why don't we say, we can do it, output. I've got this thing here. Yeah, output. My goodness me. Output, declare output. Output, 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 output. Okay, fine. We could go back, couldn't we? Management. There we go, look, output, verbose. Let's run that now. Let's see what happens. Okay, there we go. Now, let's have a look what happened. We made a call to /hub/REST API v1 management messaging queues. We authenticated with this bearer token. We'll look where the bearer token came in a minute. That was it. Okay. Oh yeah, unnecessary use of -x, get is already inferred. Fine. There, here we go. Here's the first call. Here's the first call, right? Don't forget we're making two calls. We're making a call to the OAuth endpoint to request an access token, and then we're using access token to make a call to the API endpoint. So the first call, let's do that again, right? Let's say, let's put in some hashes so we know not to go any further than that hash when we scroll up. Let's do that again, right? Management list queues. Let's go all the way up to those hashes. Right, now, the first thing that happens, where is it? Come on. Post /OAuth/token. Okay, so that is, where is the local utils? This call here. Okay, because we're sending -- data, curl will automatically make the method a post, right? You don't need -x or -- request. And we're sending a grant type, and we're authenticating with basic authentication. Use a client ID and client secret. And we're sending it to the token endpoint. Is that true? Let's have a look. There's the host, 65137.137 trial, blah, 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 right? Actually, that doesn't make sense. Let's have a look. Yeah, okay, yes, sorry, yes. I'm getting confused between different URL endpoints. There's the token endpoint for the call, the OAuth call to get the token, the access token, and that's that 65137.137 trial, right? That's that. /OAuth/token. Remember, in HTTP, the actual URL, you're actually making a post request, and the request is to the relative URL. And then there's a header in the request which says what the host is. So you can always think of a URL in two parts. The host, well, the scheme first of all, HTTPS. Then the host name, fully qualified host name, which is this one here, and that's sent in a host header. And then you get everything after that, the path info and any query parameters, document fragments, whatever. They get sent in the post line. Okay. Now look at that, authorization basic. That is exactly because of that line there, client ID and client secret. Have I got a base 64 decoder? Let's have a look. Base 64, I think so. So why don't we say here, echo that base 64, is it decode? There we go. So we can see SB clone, XBEM service broker, and then we've got the XBEM service broker, blah, 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 blah. That is exactly that stuff, okay? So it's all, hopefully it's all making sense, right? Where's the thing gone? There we go. Let's go back up to the hash, hash, hash. There, down, down, down. There. And again, because we're sending, oops, this line here, dash dash data, it will send it in a, a name equals, grant type equals client credentials, right? That's all we need. And by default, curl will not only, in this case, send post as the method, use post as a method, but it will also, by default, always use this content type unless you specify anything differently, right? And the result of that, well, we can't really see the result of that. There we go. There's the result. 200, yes, success. Here is your access token. We don't, in this verbose thing here, we don't see the payload, right? But the payload, we save the payload into a token file. That's what we got as a response, right? But we can see, yes, successful. And the content type was JSON. There is JSON, right? And that's pretty much it. And then it sort of starts the next call. And this is why we say -x. So maybe, what am I doing here? Let's have a look, get service key. If we look at the management, sure, list queues. There we go, request get. I'm doing an explicit request get, right? I think I was doing this explicitly in the functions here. So if we remove this, right, get rid of that, and do that again. Should we do it again? We've removed that. We should now not get that warning, which will sort of prove that that's the thing that's being called, right? There we go. There's the other. There. There's the new call. That was where it sort of disconnected from that thing there. We've got enterprise method. There we go. There. That's the end of the first call, right? That's where we got the 200 and we got the access token. And then, again, via TLS, we send a get request, and we don't get the warning about you don't need to send -- request get. Curl's not, or -x. Curl saying you don't need that because it's, it's by default. So if you don't specify -- data, then we make the call to the actual API endpoint, and we authenticate that call. Well, slightly philosophically the wrong word to say. We specify our authorization, the bearer token, and that bearer token is the token. Where is it? Where is bearer token? There it is. There. That thing. Hopefully, JQ access token token.json is that thing there. A bit small, isn't it? A bit big. Let's go back up there. There. EYJHB. That's the thing. So that's it. Does that make sense? That was yeah, okay. I'm glad we're going to do the authorization code next week, because this was very straightforward. Okay, we went a bit overboard in having a look what's going on underneath, but from a client credentials perspective, that grant type, that flow, all you need to do, let's just have a look at it. All you need to do, let's get rid of all this rubbish here. All we need to do is specify in the local utils, we need to specify all the normal stuff, i.e. we need a client ID, and we need a client secret, and we need the client credentials grant type, and that's all we need to ask for a token. Authenticate the token request with client ID and client secret. Just say, give me a token in the client credentials grant type context. And you send that request to the token endpoint. It gives you an access token back with other things as well, not including a refresh token, as we noted. But then, all we need to do is in fact, let's edit it instead. Oh, there we go. There. All we need to do is use that token just like we've used the token in the call to the what was it? The allow data centers call, the CIS call. We just use it a token as a bearer token in the authorization header to authenticate that call. We make the call to the API, the endpoint that we want, and that's it. Okay, so the client credentials is all about the program itself, the script in this case, being the autonomous, you know, the thing responsible. There's no human involved. So that's it. Yeah, let's take our time next week and have a look at the authorization code, because it's really cool. And a browser's involved and humans involved, and then the program's involved again to receive response back from the human's interaction. And then it takes this code and it says, please give me, I've got a code, please give me access token. It's amazing. Okay, so I'll see you next week. Brilliant. I'm glad we're going to do that next week. I'm super excited about it. And then maybe we'll talk about CAP for stuff after that. Okay, have a great Friday, have a great weekend, and yeah, see you next week. Bye.